Welcome to Access Eco, your trusted resource for sustainability news. Today's guest is Sarah Wilkins. Sarah is a sustainability consultant specializing in sustainable aviation fuel and sustainable mobility in public affairs, marketing, business development, and project management. Sarah is the founder of Fly Green Alliance, a company that works towards commercializing sustainable aviation fuel through research, policy change, thought leadership, and cross-disciplinary collaboration. Sarah's current work includes business development at University of Amsterdam after being a grantee of the Booking.com. She has also been accepted as a new startup at Climate Kick as the founder of Fly Green Alliance and project manager for the UEFA supported program Tackle. Sarah's commitment to changing the way we travel in order to preserve the planet we live on is truly remarkable. Sarah, it's a joy to have you on the show today.
Thank you. Good to be pleased to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Sarah, tell us a little bit about how you got started in this whole industry and being able to really transform the way the travel industry operates in order to make it more sustainable.
Yeah, sure. So I was working in the travel industry in a hotel chain in Amsterdam. And I was working with the team on sustainability projects and the circular economy. So we were really looking at the waste and how we could be more efficient in the hotel. At the time, I met Shiju Ravindra, my now business partner at the University of Amsterdam, and he is a sustainable chemist. So we were looking into, so I was discussing with him waste and what we could do with it and how we could be more efficient and make use of the waste. So he presented a lot of his projects. He was very excited about his work, and that was very infectious. And he then mentioned you can make jet fuel from waste.
Yes.
So yeah, I was very surprised at this, and I thought that, well, if that is this true? You know, this sounds like absolutely we should certainly be doing this. If we can make something as useful as, you know, aviation fuel, and it is sustainable and is within the tourism industry, then this sounds like a very good circular economy. So very good. So then I had a friend at the time who was working at Booking.com, and she mentioned that Booking have got a program called Booking Cares, and it supports ideas and startups in the area of sustainable travel.
Oh, okay.
So it's a very good program, yeah. And so I went through a very big due diligence phase, because I thought this really does sound like we should be doing this in the future, and I think it makes so much sense that but I did my homework. I was full-time working, and I did a lot of research in the evenings and at the weekends, and I wrote the application. We then we went through a series of shortlistings, and in December 2018 we were granted. So that was great, and so it meant that we got funds to develop this scientific project of turning aviation fuel into waste. And then it meant that I could be the business developer full time for the research. And then actually what I realized is that the conversation is very much about the political debate and policy.
Yes.
But also there wasn't a great deal of investors knowing about the technology. So it became very clear that there was a big awareness piece that needed to happen. So I set up Fly Green Alliance, FGA, last year, so that I wasn't just talking as me. We created a team.
Yes.
And we did put the work together and started talking from our platform.
This is incredible. Actually, I love that you're talking about SAF, Sustainable Aviation Fuel, for those of you who missed last week's episode, because we actually had a Sustainable Aviation Fuel Neste company come on last week and talked about the profitability behind sustainable fuels. What I'd love for you to share with us about is What is ESG and how is that helping businesses become more profitable?
Yeah, so ESG, this is an area we've been talking about because as I have been business developing, what I realized is there's a whole investment sector which is concentrating on sustainable investments, green investments, impactful investments, but what it has turned into is kind of ESG investments.
Which stands
So,
for?
yeah, so ESG is environmental, social, and governance. So actually, it was a consultancy quite a few years ago created the term because they did a piece which demonstrated that if businesses cared, they actually were better businesses and they were more profitable. So it was, yeah, so it's a very...
Especially in today's economy. I feel like, we see the Amazons of the world, the different companies that are really leading the way in sustainability, and people won't buy anymore unless you're sustainable. Every company now has a sustainability wing attached to what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And if, there are a lot of changes, and what companies are now doing is, so, yeah, for example, our partner Amex, Amex Global Business Travel, Amex has set up a brand new ESG department, and so what we're finding is that certain businesses are really seeing that it's very important to have a foundation in the business which is showing kind of core values. And yeah, Amex very much understands this as a business, and what we are also seeing is that other company, there's SAP, they're a huge company. A lot of their work is around how to bring more ESG into the business. They're finding that actually those with a higher ESG score, so you can get a score in this ESG.
Oh, okay. That's good.
Yeah,
so good.
Yeah. So you get a score, and then what they're finding is that it increases share price. And it increases employee engagement because, of course, and especially also during the pandemic, companies that have been treated people, planet well,
yes,
they are. People notice this, and it stays with people, and that is that is a good loyalty. It's people are loyal to companies that they know are sustainable and doing good for people.
Absolutely. Actually, my dad and I would have a weekly call. We go over sustainability and investments and things like that. We were looking into investments, and we were looking into the ESG scores of these different companies, so that we knew where they stood going forward, because we really do feel that the companies it's kind of like there was companies who stayed with horses and never got onto the automobile, and eventually they couldn't sell their buggy whips and the things that they made, right? And so we really feel that this movement to become more sustainable, to protect the planet, make sure that we are undoing some of the damage we've done, the companies who are on the forefront of that, like the Amazons of the world, like the Amexes, that those are the ones that are going to be profitable in the future. And actually last week when we spoke with Neste, they said Philip Morris, the only profitable sector they had during this oil downturn was their sustainable sector. That was the only profitable one. So I want to turn a little bit more to Amex, because I was so fascinated when you told me that they had actually been having requests from their customers saying that they wanted more sustainable travel options. And so this is something that customers are actually starting to request. And again, like you said, this is causing businesses to need to get with the times and come onto the sustainability wagon, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so that is why Amex partners with us. They, they want to be at the forefront of what is happening in green travel. They want to stay up to date with what's happening with policy. And yeah, their customers are really wanting to be more sustainable. So yeah, Amex is a travel management. Amex GBT is a global business travel, is a travel management company. So we have been presenting to different travel management companies, doing polls, and they're really, even during, they're seeing sustainability is absolutely being requested, but during the pandemic, the conversation has actually increased, and they want, they want to understand how to bring solutions to their clients, more about sustainable aviation fuel, as we've discussed, and how to do it, because there's what we are discovering from insights and market research is that, of course, everybody understands that climate is hugely important, climate action, and most people do a bit. And if you ask the question, would you want to travel more sustainably? It is yes.
Absolutely.
But, yeah.
And especially if we can, what I'm saying too is we bring the demand for sustainable travel up, especially in things like the sustainable aviation fuels, SAF.
Yeah.
Right. And that's something that you advocate for a lot, is the sustainable fuels, is that when we bring that demand up, the price begins to go down. And as the price begins to go down, then, the whole aviation sector is able to adopt something like SAF, which can bring emissions down up to 85%, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it makes sense on so many levels. It's the UN approved, it's European Commission, IATA, everybody is knowing the benefits of it. It was at a stuck point. Everybody said it's chicken and egg. So, there's not enough demand and not enough supply. But last week there was a conference set up by the International Civil Aviation Authority and ICAO, Civil Authority Organization. And it was, it's very much discussed, and it's very much there now. And the conversation was, it's not chicken and egg anymore. We know there is demand there. It's how to find the investment to build the plants and to get what they call offtake agreements. The airlines will be willing to take this, but also finding corporates to support this work, because actually it's still very expensive. It's 3 times as much as kerosene. It does have all the benefits, but right now airlines can't fully afford to pay for it, and they certainly can't right now.
Right.
Yeah, and so
that's where some of the private travel, they're really bringing in SAF in a big way right now. I talked to someone at Signature Aviation recently, and they brought in a big order of SAF. Signature really leads the way on some of these sustainability measures.
Yeah.
And they said that the prices actually decreased. I can't remember what the percentage was, but I think it was almost 4 times as much as kerosene, and now it's getting closer to 2 times as much. So the more and more we use it, the more it goes down, of course.
Absolutely. So it's finding these big commitments. So we now we can't say yet, but we are, we're going to be working with a client which is they want a sustainable travel policy. It's important to them as a business. We are working with them to create a sustainable travel policy, which includes commitments to sustainable aviation fuel. So the work we're doing is really building up the advocacy and awareness so that companies know how to do it and where it is. And I just spoke to World Energy today, who is based in California, and they said they supply Bill Gates' private fleet. Yeah. So there is, I think it is having Amazon have made commitments, Microsoft. So it's finding the companies that have high sustainability commitments. They've made targets to become carbon neutral. And they understand that, well, in normal circumstances, travel is a very large amount of their emission. They're giving off the emissions, so it's definitely becoming a solution. I think what was previously, not many organisations would know about it, but awareness is building, and that's also what we are doing as a business. We are an organisation. We are talking. We have talked to, since pandemic, actually, we've presented online to many companies, travel management companies, corporate travel managers. So it's really given the information and And yeah, we are also put a meeting together in June with European Commission, IATA, Airlines for Europe, European Business Aviation Association, Lufthansa, KLM, British Airways. So we, and it's bringing people together to discuss collaboration and an alliance to get it moving more quickly.
Absolutely. And that's the only way to move forward. And speaking of bringing people together and moving things forward more quickly, I know that your company works on policy reform in the sustainable travel sector. Tell us a little bit about what's going on in policy reform and some of those policies that are really making a difference.
Yeah, so I was on the National Business Airline Association, NBAA, conference the last 2 days, and actually in the US. So I know we mostly concentrate on Europe, but because I have been on the conference this week, and Congressman Rick Larson is really pioneering the work. I think he sits on the subcommittee on aviation. In California, there is the low carbon fuel standard, and there is a lot of, so that is essentially incentivizing, it subsidizes the cost of sustainable aviation fuel, making it more affordable. So actually California is leading the way on policy, so go California. But now it is also happening, it's moved to Oregon, and then I think Washington.
Right, we were speaking before the show a little bit that we're all the places that have been on fire during September. So they're the ones that really know that this is important and we need to move forward so that we don't catch on fire every year.
No, they see it and they understand that, there's work is there, the technology's there, it's getting the finance moving and actually awareness in the general public and business sector to start making the financial commitments to support and to move in this industry. It is part of the energy transition. It's not going to be the cheapest option, but it's absolutely, it's the next step and it's the next phase we need to get to.
Well,
EU level, yeah.
I mean, just like anything, when you're starting something new, it's not the cheapest to start with, but often, you get a new machine or a new something other, it becomes cheaper in the long run. And so that's what I know. We were speaking to Philip Morris earlier, and they were some really early adopters of changing some of their factories into sustainable fuel factories. The biofuels, the waste that has been transformed into fuel. And since they were early adopters during this oil downturn where, no one was driving cars or flying planes and oil was costing hardly anything, the only profitable sector they saw was their sustainable fuels. And so this is where, you're really mitigating risk in a lot of ways by being early adopters of this. And though, sure, there might be some expense up front, there's really a lot of back-end savings.
Yeah, it's a future investment. It's people are talking about slower investments now. It's not going to be this immediate high, and it can take up to 5 years to get the finance to build the plants and to get it moving, but it really is. So the solution is talked of as a medium term solution for sustainable aviation fuel. Electrification is on its way for short haul, but really 80% of emissions are from long haul flights, and for long haul, electric is not feasible. It will always
a long way off, if ever, right? Maybe hydrogen. Yeah. I think hydrogen will see on the long hauls before electric if we see it.
Yeah, there's a lot of discussion in the industry about hydrogen at the moment. So there are a few technologies that will support decarbonisation, but it is very much understood it will be sustainable aviation fuel. The technology is there, and
it's just a drop-in, right? You can just drop it into normal planes. There's nothing that needs to be changed on the actual aircraft itself.
No, so it's a very good solution, and Once, yeah, as you say, once the supply and demand factors come down, that yeah, work needs to be done to increase demand, increase supply. Once there is demand, then offtake agreements can be taken, and you can demonstrate to investors that there is a customer. So that's what all of the investors always ask: is there a customer? And until you can prove that, so we do a lot of advocacy. We build business cases. So that's kind of what the kind of nitty gritty of our work is, demonstrating the business cases to show it will be a longer term, but profitable in the long run. So yeah, that's a lot of the work we do.
And so I know that as far as bringing in investors and things like that, you have really been accelerating this energy transition by speaking to investors like, I think you mentioned Wind Europe and their market mechanisms to...
So Wind Europe are in the association which scaled, so electricity from wind, so I spoke to the CEO, Giles Dixon, and he gave advice on the fact that it was, different market mechanisms that dropped the price of electricity from wind by 5 times over 10 years. So that is probably the period of time it's going to take. It's not going to be a very quick fix. All of this takes a considerable policy, and it will be tendering. He talked of PPAs, power purchase agreements, and policy. So it's never one simple solution. It will be a combination, but also he also mentioned high-profile customers such as Google and eBay, and the big energy users and data centers. So it's having the commitment, which sign the PPAs, get those agreements going, have some high-profile PR and discussions about it, so people know it's been done.
So it's working, and I'm really excited about the work that you're doing in this, because these discussions are happening. These things are coming out, and you're really there, both in front of the scenes and behind the scenes, with the policies and the different events that you've been going to and speaking at. And so I'm really excited to continue to hear more about the work you're doing. I'd love to have you back on the show as things continue to progress. And thank you so much, Sarah, for coming on the show and for sharing with our audience just this really important issue, and how it's not only a long-term solution, but it's a profitable long-term solution that will help our planet and our pocketbooks, and everybody just live a more sustainable life, and that the demand is there. So I think that's really great to hear.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes. Well, thank you all for watching Access Eco. Thanks for educating yourself on how to protect the planet and to be profitable at the same time. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week on Access Eco.